Hi everyone, Dr. Vernita White here. I go by Dr. V and I am your brilliant solutionist. I help you expand your life, expand your business, and explore untapped potential in multiple areas of your life. So this is going to be very short. I was on Inside Higher Ed again, and I saw this article talking about pinning ceremony for it was the University of New Jersey having a pinning ceremony to boost teacher morale and retention. So a pinning ceremony, if you're unfamiliar with that, is you get a specialized pin, whether it's from the College of Education, a particular honors program, if they have it, something, that you can actually pin, engrave university crest, whatever. And they have a whole ceremony, and it's like, oh, you've done a great job to want to be in this profession. It takes a lot of courage and responsibilities and, all of these things. And so it sounded like it was a good idea. One student was like, I don't know if I should miss class for this. But when she got there, she was so excited and she felt like she made the right decision right then and there. Now, somebody else commented, and I agree with the person that commented. I think they are an associate professor at another institution, and they were saying that's cute and all, but what is a pinning ceremony really going to do to solve the issue that we're having in K-12 with the teacher shortage and the low morale and the low pay? And I agree. Although I am not in either one of those situations anymore, I was a former K-12 teacher in mathematics. I taught middle school and high school. Then I was a district specialist for one of the largest school districts in the country, actually. And then I worked in higher education, as a full-time graduate student and as a college professor. So I totally get what the professor was talking about who commented on the ceremony. And it's one of those things where we're not really talking about the real issue. When I was a grad student getting my doctorate degree, I worked on a $10 million grant, and it was called Race to the Top. And it was for trying to get STEM professionals into the education space. So they would get a Master's of Art of Teaching, which is a very different master's degree from the university where I was. And what it was is their bachelor's degrees were in science and engineering, computer engineering, just all of those hard science, pure mathematics, things like that, IT, whatever was in the STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, whatever was in that realm, that was their bachelor's degree. So their agreement was that they get a free master's degree if they go into teaching. I think a year, they only had to commit a year to teaching, and they got a free master's degree. Now, again, it was only a Master's of Arts of Teaching, so a very specific master's degree. But still, it was like you got a master's degree, you got to go to grad school for free. And the idea behind that was if they use that skill set in the content area and come into the classroom, then that should close the achievement gap for students, because in most cases in the colleges of education, if they don't, a lot of them aren't content heavy, especially if they're in the elementary field, or they have very limited content. Now, my undergrad, I started off as a computer engineer major, dropped out, but I have a full degree in mathematics and then a degree in secondary education. So I have 2 bachelor's degrees. So I was very content focused, and my PhD is also in mathematics. But it's not a lot of secondary ed majors. And what I mean by that is teaching a specific content area. A lot of majors are elementary ed, or they start off like in any other field and take some education classes. But anyway, so the idea was if you have a strong content, then we can teach you the pedagogy and things to become a teacher. Now, looking back on that, I was like, that's not all the way true. It's like I just believe like teaching is a gift and it's a specialized skill set, but it's not treated that way, especially in the United States. So I said all that to say is having a pinning ceremony and having those things, they look good, they sound great. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm in the profession. But once you get in, then it's not always like that. And it depends on where you are. Some teachers, like one I read she makes $92,000 a year. I forgot where she is, but she's up north somewhere. And down in the South, like I'm in the South, and some of the average salaries in this area, I think Mississippi is the lowest. The average is 50,000, but in my state, I'm in Florida, starting teachers can make like 39,000 still. And people can talk about the teachers up north making a lot because of cost of living. Well, that's not just true. That's not true either. Just based, because if it was based on cost of living, then everybody would get a raise, that's comparable to where they are. Florida is becoming an expensive, and I don't really like to use the word expensive, but for the purpose of this, an expensive state to live in. So you're not gonna be anywhere on $39,000 a year, and a lot of teachers are working part-time, or they're running straight to administration so they can get money. But then when you average it out, it's about the same in some cases. Now, some administrators are doing fine, but why the teacher salaries vary is because it's by school districts and where people value education. So I wrote down some numbers. And I was going to get into like the frequency of all that, but I said this was going to be short because this is just an opinion piece. So the coach, so I was like, well, instead of going into teaching, why don't you just go into the coaching space and figure out what you're good at, what you can coach, and then just do something from there. And I know it sounds odd for me saying that, but the online coaching industry, especially in the online coaching space, is projected to hit $67 billion in the year 2030. 67 billion B in 2030. At the time of this recording, it is 2022. So we got a few more years before we hit that. And the personal development space is at $43.7 billion. And a lot of people don't realize this, but there's a high correlation between what you're learning as a true education major, if you have a rigorous program, and what it takes to coach and understand human behavior and belief systems and reaching goals and tapping into untapped potential and things like that. It's very closely related, but I just find it interesting that that industry is booming while the United States averages about $14,000 that they pay per student through the cost of, going to school. Now, the U.S., the government, what they paid on school combined from the U.S. federal, state, and local government, it's about $667 billion. So it makes you think, like, if there's a combined pool of $667 billion that the U.S. government spends on education, I can't remember if that was yearly, but I'm gonna say it's a year, so we'll say that. It's like, well, where's this money going? And why aren't teachers being paid? And the reason why I brought up the coaching space is because people, and I'm not saying all coaches do this, but you can make serious money being a coach by teaching people something that you already know and walking them through a process. That's what classroom teachers do, especially great ones. There have been countless of stories that I've read, and look, I'm in this position where teachers have left. One teacher, she was a mathematics teacher. She taught 7th grade mathematics. She left, and she was like, no, I can't do this anymore. I love teaching, but I can't deal with the politics and everything that's happening in the school. She taught mathematics. She left and built $1 million business in the coaching space. I forgot what she was coaching on, but still. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm going to do that too. So it wasn't that, she left teaching. She's still teaching people. She's just teaching people in a different way. And being an educator helped her do that. So then I just made a joke. It was like, well, why even go into the profession? Why not figure out how you can teach somebody something else, or build your own teaching, build your own kind of school, tutoring industry, and things like that? Because just having a pinning ceremony is not going to cut it. Like I said, I agree with that profession. It's like, it's a deeper issue. That pin, although it's nice, is not going to help with morale when things get really tough. And it may work in some areas where, they are getting paid $92,000 a year, and it's not just because it's cost of living. Because some people will say, well, it's $92,000, that's the same as if you're making $50,000 because it's so expensive to live here. But in certain areas, like, no, that's still good. And then if you're not dealing with the pressures of the politics and the student behavior, the lack of parental involvement or too much parental involvement, all of the things like that, then it's like, why am I putting myself through this? So the teaching profession is a dying profession, unfortunately. And I just want to share my opinion, because that pinning ceremony, although it's cute, it's sweet, it's like the job, it is not going to solve the problem of the teacher shortage. It may help for a little bit, like, you know, like for you, you're excited and you're going in, like a lot of people are bright-eyed, bushy-tailed when they get in there, but people aren't making it past 3 years or 5 years in the profession. And it's like, I understand, you know, you want to boost that, but until people value education and what true education majors have to go through, then it's not going to change. And not all programs, but a lot of programs are rigorous. They take multiple exams, multiple classes, so many hours that you have to put in the field. Like, they do work at a level like where medical doctors, even though they're not cutting up bodies, but they still have to go observe student behavior, understand student behavior, have to understand not just the content, but how a curriculum works, how standards work, what are all of these things, how to get students to learn. You're dealing with multiple personalities at one time, learning multiple modalities at the same time. And then your own issues that you may be dealing with. No one's really talking about those issues. And until people value that, until they figure out how to redirect that $667 billion that's going to the education system, then the pinning ceremony is not going to cut it. And I'm bringing this up, although I'm not in K-12 or higher ed anymore, but higher ed, in higher ed colleges and universities, the education professors get paid the least on campus, which is crazy, because it's like the whole point of a university is to teach something, and the profession is teaching. It should be flipped, but that's not the case. So again, until people start valuing what happens at what it takes to become a true educator, then the pay is still going to suck, for lack of a better word. I know a lot of people who teach education, they look for universities where the education department is housed in hard science, because they have a better chance at getting paid better. And I know I got paid, you know, a little more than some of my colleagues, because my background, and I was able to cross departments. And I'm like, that's unfortunate, but it was the value. People value teaching mathematics over teaching somebody the history of education, right? Even though you go through I don't want to say you go through the same thing, but you go through all these years of school, you go through the testing and things like that. And honestly, you don't have to test anything to be a mathematics person. Like, there's no test of knowledge. You know, you go take your test in your university, but then when it's time to go get hired, you go get hired. You know, some cases there may be like small certification exams, but not like in the education space. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting. I was like, well, instead of going to be a teacher, why not just go ahead and be a coach and figure out how to use your skill set elsewhere? Some people may disagree. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. It's like, well, you can get access to the billions. You can get access to billions versus waiting for the billions to come to you. Does that make sense? So it's like I said, the U.S. Department of Education spent $667 billion on education. That includes salaries, letting students go to school for free, because it costs about $14,000 per student to come to school, you know, buildings, whatever. But in the coaching industry, that money goes to the people that are coaching. So it's like, hey, I'd rather go for the $67 billion than try to wait for somebody to figure out how to give me a bigger slice of the $667 billion. Hope that makes sense. So let me know your thoughts below. If you agree, disagree, I still want to hear. That's why it's an open dialogue. And thank you for entertaining this quick video. I hope it was quick. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.